Disney seems to be making the decision that it's just not worth it. Like, why do you want this much headache? Why do you want the likes of Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar running you into all kinds of trouble when they effectively are nothing but a wing of the Democrat Party? I want to play for you the full soundbite. Somehow, Whoopi Goldberg is now trying to equate with some bizarre logic that actually, frankly, doesn't even make sense. Let me know if you can make sense of this one. She's trying to equate the president-elect Donald Trump and his experience with that of Hunter Biden's. Here we go.
I respect it as a parent. I understand why he would do it, but I wonder to understand why lie about it for so long.
I'd stop calling it a lie.
Okay, why repeatedly say you're not going to and you do? And secondarily, for the part of this country, half of it that doesn't support Biden, doesn't know him personally, doesn't get to have phone calls, and they're just looking at a system that seems like it only benefits the people who are in power.
I'm going to say,
what precedent does that set?
Well, here's what it sets. It's a precedent for all of us to open our eyes because we've elected someone who is in a similar situation, who didn't have a drug problem, who knew what he was doing, who clearly stood and said, I can do this. And he did it. So I think, for many, many reasons, this is very different than any other situation that we have ever dealt with.
I mean, that one's a stretch, I gotta say, like even for her. And by the way, kudos to the brunette there that's making the point very rightly that this doesn't really sit well with the majority of Americans who already believe that somehow the odds are stacked against them with a really corrupt system. We have more on that coming up. It's exactly the point, by the way, that Donald Trump made, and perhaps why he's going to actually pardon the J6 people that are in jail right now. But before we do, think about how they were trying to grease the wheels for all of this. Even as recently as this Thursday and Friday, if you watch the show, they were already on The View talking about how it was so important that, and understandable, if you would, that Joe Biden would pardon his son. Here's Sonny Houston on Friday.
One of the issues that I have is when you look at the charges that Hunter Biden was indicted on, less than 0.09% of the population is are indicted on that charge. And so it's basically close to zero. So I actually think that the only reason he was indicted is because his last name is Biden. So if you look at it like that, right, if you look at it like that, then it is the right thing to do to correct course and correct that wrong and pardon his son. The other piece of this is Hunter Biden has acknowledged his addiction. He is an addict. And in the law, you know, there are all sorts of ways to handle people that commit crimes because of their addiction. There are drug deferment programs. And he should be someone that should be treated a bit differently because of the addiction. And I would support not only, I think, his pardon on the illegal gun application one, but the other one in California as well.
Okay, so thanks to our friends over at Newsbusters for pulling that clip. Interestingly, what is important for you to understand, and for in terms of like why Disney would ever want to keep this program, which increasingly now they do not, we have learned the reason they don't want to keep it is because, again, basically it's coming from the White House to The View. So what Sonny Houston was basically saying is an exact version of what Joe Biden tweeted out over the weekend. So clearly they were telegraphing a message to The View. Sonny has it right there on set. She's giving the same verbiage that you're going to hear in just a minute from Joe Biden over the weekend. And then on top of that, she's doing the drug thing like, oh, for example, he shouldn't be responsible for his actions because he was addicted, which is exactly what Whoopi was trying to say today. I mean, this is bizarre. This is really bizarre. And then on top of that, of course, Whoopi had to take it one step further and say somehow that because Donald Trump doesn't suffer from those addictions, that somehow he's more guilty of something that, by the way, they just had to throw out of court. What do you think just happened with the whole Mershon thing? They can't move forward with this prosecution because they don't even have a case. Alvin Bragg never even wanted to bring that case initially. So they are increasingly sort of running themselves into trouble. And I'm going to get to it, but let me just jump ahead for a second because I think it is worth noting here just exactly the language of the pardon, right? So Joe Biden coming out over the weekend saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to pardon him. And by the way, I'm going to pardon him for everything, like for 10 years. For 10 years, because he's terrified that Kash Patel and Donald Trump might go after him for not having registered as a lobbyist and accepting money from all those foreign nations. But he also says basically that, this wasn't fair, it wasn't reasonable. In other words, he wouldn't have had this happen to him if his last name wasn't Biden. No reasonable person, he writes, who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases can reach any other conclusion than Hunter was singled out only because he is my son, and that is wrong. Kind of just like what we had to hear from Sonny Houston. So again, they're using ABC, they are using Disney to try and channel a bunch of information. So Disney's like, I don't think so. Like, you really want this headache right about now, especially given that you got a new head of the FCC in one Brendan Carr who's going to come in and say, hey, enough is enough. In other words, you guys are not really playing fair. But maybe it doesn't even have to get that far. So take a look at the ratings. Like, they got great ratings on election day. We can give them that. The highest ratings ever. It was like 4.7 million or something. Okay, kudos to you. The day after election, everybody kind of wanted to tune in to just see them cry, I guess. That was worth something, even for me. I watched parts of it. No one could actually, unless you're like in some kind of torture chamber, I guess, like no one could actually sit through an hour of that show willingly, but I did watch sections of it and played some of them for you. So they got their highest rated day ever. Their highest rated day, when they were going on and on about how could this happen? How could he possibly win this election? We're going to just blame social media and X and all those podcasts, all those bad, like, woohoo, right over here. Make sure you subscribe, share, like. Anyway, here they are.
Why not let Fox News off the hook, please?
I don't understand.
And Newsmax and all the fake news that's been going out there. One of the things that we need to do, and it's not to abolish the Department of Education. As a former teacher, believe me, he's talking about doing that.
Yes.
Kids I brought this up before, I'm going to bring it up again. In Finland, kids in nursery school are learning to discern between fake news and real news. Yeah. They should be teaching that in this country. Between
how much you'll want to bet?
And real news. Yeah. They should be teaching that in this country.
Yeah.
Teach children tolerance. Teach them to think critically.
Well, it would help if we could regulate social media, because one of the biggest offenders is D.C. and Congress have not been able to do one thing in regard to the rogue corporations of social media.
It's not going to get any better with Elon Musk now in the administration.
I mean, okay, so somehow it's social media's fault. It's somehow Elon Musk's fault. It's somehow the fault that we don't teach people to watch The View instead of, streaming news on YouTube or the Trish Regan show or Joe Rogan or anything else, right? Like Newsmax. God help you if you watch Newsmax, Fox. They're taking aim at anything that disagrees with them. I mean, this is the funny irony of it. So guess what happens? What happens? The next day, the following week, ratings plunged from that all-time high, that big, wonderful episode that they have. And this is the headline: The View sheds post-election ratings bump on par with season averages among households and viewers. So they sunk 43.57%. So again, you say to yourself, well, hey, they're doing okay. Like, why not just keep them? Except that maybe advertisers aren't so psyched about being aligned with a show like this right about now. I mean, not that I'm into cancel culture. Don't get me wrong. I don't believe that anybody should be canceled, except for maybe these ladies. And I get some agreement from my friend Piers on that, right? The View is a pointless, irrelevant, Trump-loathing joke. Cancel it. Enough already. Like, it's too much. But I would say this: you don't want this headache as Disney. You don't want the headache as Bob Iger. Advertisers don't want the headache, so they're not going to make as much money. It isn't going to matter, even if they do manage to somehow squeeze out a rating that's on par with whatever they've done in the past. It's too challenging to have this kind of stink around you as an organization, especially when you can be more successful in terms of targeting the viewers that you want. Think about it as an advertiser, right? That's why this industry is changing so rapidly. It's why I'm so happy to be over here. I talk about this a lot, but it's important for you to understand. First of all, you're here, right? Which is huge. And I'm streaming and I'm here. And this is all very, very new to me and maybe new to you. I don't know. I mean, for my kids, they're like, Finally, Mom, you made it. You're on YouTube. I'm like, really? Forget about the 20 years of mainstream media experience. That doesn't matter now, not for the kids anyway. But what's intriguing is that as an advertiser, you can actually go directly to the people that you want to get access to, because it's so much more specific. And so you don't really want to be advertising on The View because you get all the headache of that, and you're not going to be getting that targeted audience that really, as an advertiser, you should so desire. It's why Disney wants out of this, and it's why Joy Behar is getting so frustrated. We're ABC News, she's claiming. Yeah, like that, and $5 will get you a latte these days. Joy Behar is saying, look, I just don't understand why anybody would be watching anything else. I mean, Joe Rogan, forget about it. This is her big, he believes in dragons thing. Some of you have seen this before, but you just have to watch, because the irony here going on, like what she doesn't get is that nobody trusts ABC News. Yes, they trust Joe Rogan a whole lot more, who, by the way, was having an in-depth conversation with some kind of science environmental guy who was talking about the fascination that human beings have had for thousands and thousands of years with dragons. Anyway, here we go.
People want us divided, and they aren't just here in this country. They're foreign adversaries who are infiltrating our social media because it is prudent for us to stay that way. So when you see something that really pisses you off, you should triple check that one. Yeah.
But I think that's why people like our show, because they know that we are checked by ABC News. But
we're checked by everybody.
Yeah, I mean, if we're wrong, we have, the legal note here.
The human legal note.
But we went from Walter Cronkite, basically, to this guy, Joe Rogan, who believes in dragons. I checked it. He believes in dragons? He believes in dragons.
Did you triple source that?
Yes, I did. And he also thinks that dragons, like dinosaur-y type of animals, roamed the earth when people did. So this is the type of really, really bad information that's going out there.
Well, in defense, there are some really good news.
It's possible that Donald Trump did roam the earth when dinosaurs were here.
There are some really good news kind of influencer types, and I think it's great that they're getting information about global and current events in front of younger people who maybe don't tune into traditional media. But to Sarah's point, there has to be some fact-checking and actually verification of the things that are shared, because I spend a lot of time on Instagram Reels, and I'm served up things that I get outraged about, and then I realize, oh, that's not even true, but I have the sense to go and look it up. But what I do worry about with this, like the Blue Sky versus X, because a lot of people I follow on X, Twitter, have now left to go to Blue Sky, I worry we're all going into our own echo chamber. So we had this, this election that was tense. Donald Trump won, and the right is going to stay on X, and then the left.
You clearly are all in your own echo chamber, are you not? And what's amazing is that the mainstream media has been in this echo chamber over and over and over again, telling us over and over and over again how bad Donald Trump was. And guess what? America just had a giant FU, right? They just elected him overwhelmingly. That was quite a mandate, no matter what they try and tell you on The View. As for Joe, he fired back. It was actually pretty funny. He had basically been having this conversation with some guy named Forrest Galante, and they were talking about dragons, and he had some kind of epiphany that, basically there had to be some kind of large lizard-like creature, always here, always around, because think about how humans have always, for years, for centuries, thousands of years, kind of had this as part of mythology, kind of a mythological creature. And so that's sort of his response. And he had some F-bombs in there as well. Let me see. I think I have the whole clip. I like how he says, Joe Rogan believes in dragons. She's worried. Joy Behar, she's scared.
Worried about losing your job, and you're worried about podcasts taking over, and who's the source of news. And we said Donald Trump was Hitler, but half the country disagreed with us, and he won, and this is and Joe Rogan believes in dragons.
That's great, right? I love that. So here are these ladies going hysterical on The View, and Bob Iger, CEO of Disney, has to be looking at that going, what do I want this for? And now he's got some backup, right? Not just from me, but like I said, from Piers Morgan. Big title in the New York Post the other day saying The View is pointless, irrelevant, Trump-loathing jokes. Just cancel it. Enough already. Would you? Oh, we have so much news. What the heck with this pardon? What the heck is that about? I mean, why did he sit there and lie to us and tell us over and over and over and over again that he was never going to pardon his son? I mean, the lie is what gets everyone. But before we get to that, before we get to Kash Patel, before we get to George Clooney and his fury, his absolute fury with Barack Obama, I just want to give a shout out for one of our great sponsors here on the Trish Regan Show, our friends over at American Heart for Gold. You can text my name to 65532. Just text Trish, Trish, to 65532 to learn more about how you might get up to $15,000 worth of free silver, or you can call them at 1-844-495-1115. Again, 844-495-1115. I do think it's really important to invest right now. We've been looking at, yesterday I just read through the Income Builder report for 76 Research that we finally put to publication. And there's just so many good ideas in there. It's one of our portfolios. We have 3 portfolios there at 76 Research. You can go to investinmaga.com to get our free guide, or you can go to 76 Research if you're interested in either the 76 Research report or if you're interested in the model portfolios. You can see like our stocks have been killing it. We have 10 to 15 picks in each one of these portfolios. And I'm a big believer in the future right now. I don't think I've ever been so optimistic on the future. Our top financial pick up 37%, the second top financial pick up 35%. Basically, we're beating the S&P, as you can see, for this particular 3-month average. I encourage you to go to 76research.com. You can get the 76 report with code word dollar, or you can get the model portfolios. I mean, that's the best value. That's really the best value for you. So I created it for you with my colleague, Rob Horton, my dear longtime friend who is a brilliant stock picker, has been on Wall Street some 20 some odd years running billions of dollars. And now we got him over here. So I'm really trying to do what I can to make sure you guys get access to the best possible information.